Thank you, everybody, for coming. I've already said hi to Bailey and my friend Kathy Peterson. So good to have you on my same Zoom call. This is nice. So we want to talk about Utah's personalized competency-based learning. We call it PCBL framework in schools. And the whole idea of this presentation is we want to give you ideas to consider. As you know, there are a lot of changes happening right now in our culture. And we want to let you know how Utah is adapting to these changes in culture, these changes in technology, these changes in traditions. We at USBE are working fast and furious to try to create a structure that will enable students to thrive with all of the technology, cultural, and political changes that we're experiencing and that our students are experiencing. We are just living through it for the first time as they are living it for the first time. And more specifically, we want to talk about how the early learning standards are aligned with all of the efforts that USBE is doing to help prepare students to successfully navigate their future in education. So that's what we want to do. We want to show you where the momentum is, where we're going, and how that fits into preschool. So let's talk a little bit about the core standards. So at one point in this presentation, we are going to look at these in more detail. There's an activity with this document. So we would like you to open this. There is a link in Nearpod, and there is going to be a link in the chat. We'd like you to open this document and have both windows open during this presentation. So we'll give you a minute or so to get that open and to ask for any questions or any guidance on how to do this. Are we good to go on? Okay, let's go on. Let's introduce the presenters. I just started working a few months ago with Michael Hakkarainen, and I'm super excited to work with him. I'm going to let him introduce himself, and if he forgets anything, I'll jump right in.
Thanks, Melanie. So yeah, I'm new here. I joined the Utah State Board of Education in October, and I'm lucky enough to have a desk that is right next to a little glass wall. And on the other side of that glass wall is Jessica Mackley. And I like to put Star Wars figures on the glass wall and see if she notices them. But my job is a PCBL specialist, that's personalized and competency-based learning. My background is here in Utah. I worked for the Utah Education Network doing instructional technology training. So I did some workshops, some programs, did a lot of Canvas training and Canvas support. Before that, I worked in the Canyon School District, but I'm originally from Maryland. I grew up in Baltimore. So yes, I am one of the invasive species, but I moved here in 2013. And my experience, as well as being in instructional technology, is that I've also been a classroom teacher, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, and also taught some undergraduate and graduate level courses at a little school called Mount St. Mary's University in Maryland. Did I forget anything, Melanie?
Yes.
Maybe my personal connection to this group?
Yes.
Okay, so I am also the proud parent of a preschooler. My 3-year-old daughter, Catherine, Kate, she goes to Kinderbeats, which is the preschool program at Jordan High School. There she is with her friend, Zoe, whose mother is a librarian at Corner Canyon. My wife happens to be the librarian at Jordan High School, so we get to be part of the learning community there. And the one thing I want to point out here in these pictures is that my favorite thing about Kinderbeats is how Kate comes home from school every day, excited about what she did, what she made, what she created. She doesn't tell me, like what they did or games or anything like that, but she always has a story about something that she has built, or, maybe it was a painting activity that you see here, or the spider that they put on the web, things like that. And so I just want to say a shout out to Debbie Wells, who runs the program there. Here she is with Kate. Debbie really is a part of our family. She is an integral part of how Kate is growing up and becoming a lifelong learner. And I just want to say that. And I just think Debbie's awesome. We now send our 3-month-old son there too as well.
Cool. I love those photos. So I'll introduce myself. I spent a lot of time in Cedar City. I spent 22 years there being a teacher, being a professional developer when I lived in Cedar City. And now I am working at USBE to find ways to use technology and other teaching methods to the absolute most benefit for students. My experience lies in gathering data that is not end-of-level test scores. So I'm really focused in how to measure what is happening with students and in classrooms other than end-of-level tests. And also, I sit really close to Jessica, which is really cool. And I know enough about her that I want to be involved in anything that she leads, because I know that it produces some really great results. So I am really excited to be here today with you and Jessica and Michael.
Okay, so everybody who's in Nearpod now, this is a chance for you to tell us about yourself and where you are. On the screen, you're going to see this map of Utah, and down at the bottom are some tools. There's an arrow tool. There's also a pen tool. You can click on that and grab a specific color. And then if you want, just go and click on the map where you are. I'm in Cottonwood Heights, so I'll put a little red dot right there. And then if you want to tell us about yourself, click on the 2T button. That'll bring up a text box that you can drag off to the white area and just tell us who you are, where you are. Maybe what your role is in the preschool world. I'll just say preschool parent. And then when you're done, you can come down here and click the submit button. Okay, so those are your instructions. While you're doing that, I'm going to toggle the Nearpod screen up here from student to teacher so we can see what you put in. Now, everybody doesn't have to be in Nearpod. If you're more comfortable just watching our Zoom presentation and playing along, that's fine. But over in the Zoom chat, go ahead and put in there who you are and where you're from. It'll put your name automatically. So just tell us where you are and what you do. There's Melanie working at home in Salt Lake. And I see that we have Tina is drawing and Taylor Dobson is up near Brigham City. Nice. We have Christy in St. George. This is when I get to pretend I'm a radio show host. Amber is still drawing. Erica is way up in Logan. Go Aggies. St. George, another St. George. It must be so nice and warm down there. Jody, Hurricane. I said it right, even though I'm from Maryland, right? Are you proud of me? Penny's drawing. Tina's drawing. Tina, looks like you're having a fun time. Bailey Phelps is in Hurricane. A para-educator, Deborah. 3 boys with ASD. Jessica Mackley. Oh, there you are, Jessica. Oh, are you up in Davis, Jessica?
Yep, I live in North Salt Lake.
Awesome. All right. So that's just a demo of Nearpod. We got people from all over. Bluff, Utah. That's cool. Look, we had somebody from Montezuma Creek, which is just around the corner from you, right? I do. Thank you, Kathy. You could be out in the sun enjoying the nice weather, but instead you're sitting here with us. Or I wouldn't be offended, or I encourage you to take your iPad or laptop or phone or wherever you're on and go outside and enjoy. So we'll have some more opportunities for you to participate here, either by Nearpod or by the chat. We're going to allow you to have some choice in your interactivity here, take some agency. Next thing I have up from you now is a question about the students you're working with today. 10 years from now, what's one characteristic that you hope that all of your students will possess? Every student, 10 years from now, when they're 13, 14, or 15, what's that one characteristic you hope all of them have? Oh, Good one, Taylor. Some patience. I like that. So I'm going to click the heart button right here. If you see somebody post something you like, go ahead and give it a little love. Empathy. Nice. Oh, cool, Erica. Love learning. Okay, keep them coming, guys. If you don't want to put it in Nearpod, you can put it in the chat. Acceptance and kindness, logical thinking, good. To do this, all you do is come down here to where it says share thoughts and or images. You can type in a name, or you can click on image. And if you want to search for a picture on the web, you can. Or you can drag and drop a picture if there's one you want, and then you just click save and post it to the board. You can put in pictures, perspective taking, confidence, great attitude. All right, good stuff. I'm curious, how come nobody wrote like proficient on reading test scores or complete college algebra? What's that, Melanie?
Counting from 1 to 20.
Hopefully they can count higher than that in 10 years. I don't know. I'm getting up to 50, so I can barely count that far. Cool. Good suggestions. Now, the reason we did this is we had a question similar to this come up a couple years ago in 2018 from a board member who was concerned about whether or not students from Utah schools were graduating prepared for college and career and the world ahead of them, and asked the question, what revisions do we need to make to high school graduation requirements? Now, we don't know if that was the right question or not, but it did springboard into a different question. We looked at our vision, and that was that upon completion, all Utah students are prepared to succeed and lead. So how do you create graduation requirements for that? Is it how many science credits you have, or math credits, or what reading level you're on, or your test scores? How do we determine what it means to succeed and lead? You know, having that knowledge and skills to learn, engage civically, and lead meaningful lives. Is it about academic mastery, or is it about something else? Something like what you said, acceptance, kindness, great attitude, love of learning, things like that. Then we looked at our mission, and here in Utah, we are an LEA-led state. So like we want our LEAs to be out front, to be making the decisions. We at USBE do not mandate or dictate what needs to happen. I mean, we set up guardrails, but we mostly want to create conditions for student success. We advocate for necessary resources, developing policy, and providing effective oversight and support. And a lot of that comes from finding out from you what works, and then being able to remove barriers and create supports so that you can do your jobs and be the most effective at encouraging student success. So the bigger question about this, not just the requirements for graduation, but what really are the ideal characteristics of a Utah graduate? What is it we look for? If that person was to come sit down at your table and be a member of your family, or be hired by your business, or come work at your school, what would you want them to possess? Thanks for putting that in there, Jessica. So we can't answer that ourselves from USBE. As teachers, we can't answer that. We need to ask everybody in Utah. So we put focus groups together from the governor's office, legislators, USHE, the higher ed, business leaders, Salt Lake Chamber of Commerce, equity directors, special education directors, USBE personnel, educators, parents, and probably most importantly, students. What are the characteristics of a graduate? And this led to the Utah Portrait of a Graduate. You may or may not have seen this already. I'm going to share a link for it in the chat in a minute, as well as Nearpod. But this is what we have determined as the answer to that question, the MAP. We break this down. It's an acronym which stands for the Mastery, Autonomy, and Purpose. More than just academic mastery, right? That's right here, academic mastery. Don't get me wrong, it's one of the 13 things, but it's just one, because along with that comes wellness, civic, financial, and economic literacy, and digital literacy. Students who are academically prepared to exist and be healthy in the world of tomorrow, to succeed and lead. Along with that comes autonomy. Those are your 4 C's. You've probably heard these before: communication, critical thinking and problem solving, creativity and innovation, collaboration and teamwork. Along with those 4 C's are 2 other C's, citizenship and character. And we have them up here in green in an area we call purpose. And this is where a child is prepared to make good life decisions, influences their behavior, shapes their goals, gives them a sense of direction. That's honesty, integrity, and responsibility, hard work and resilience, lifelong learner, right? We had somebody put in love of learning. That's it right there. Service and respect. So much greater scope than just we want our students to be on grade level with reading and have this many math credits and this many science credits. It's a completely different way of preparing students for the future. It's a learner-centered approach. So here's the link to Utah's Portrait of a Graduate. You should be able to click on this right in Nearpod. If you didn't open Nearpod, don't worry. I'm going to open it in the browser. This is our website that has links to all of the information about Portrait of a Graduate, just in case you haven't seen this before. I'll copy it and put it in the link in the chat. There you go. Okay. So all the resources are there, the P20 competencies, our map, our framework, you name it. Now, how does this tie into PCBL, our topic of today, personalized and competency-based learning? We're struggling with this in our offices, but we're starting to kind of wrap our head around this and think of the visual as it is the bridge. It is the pathway that gets students to that all-encompassing portrait of a graduate. It stands for personalized and competency-based learning. It means that we need to empower our students to be learners, to have voice and choice and take agency in their learning, to be active members in creating those learning experiences. And then we need to create experiences that will measure their success, not based on seat time in a classroom or a score on a test, but their ability to comprehend the skills and dispositions and to know where they are in approaching mastery and know how to get to mastery. So it's a new acronym, right? You may have never heard of PCBL, or you may have heard of, personalized learning, or you might have heard of like competency-based education. But even though it's a new acronym, it's not really something new to put on your plates. And we understand educators are more overwhelmed right now than ever before. And the last thing you need is a new direction in learning. But this isn't a new direction. This is a course correction. And it's based on what we know you're already doing that works, and then creating the conditions for you to keep doing it. Removing barriers more than anything else. If your school requires a student to sit in a chair for a certain amount of time to show competency, we want to remove that expectation and allow students to move at their own pace. Now, this isn't a completely new educational approach either. It's something that, honestly, we believe early childhood educators have been doing for decades. And we can even look back at some of the pioneers of early childhood learning and development, like Frederick Froebel, who created kindergarten, a German word that means, you all know this, right? A garden for children, a garden of children. But his goals were very unique for the time. And specifically, I want to point out, kindergarten was designed to meet each child's need, every individual's personal needs, and they're all different, right? So we don't teach to a curriculum, we teach to the child and where they're at, creating physical activity, opportunities for creative expression, the experience of living among others, and satisfaction of the soul, even the joy and pleasure of singing. But this was unique for the time, to create an educational program based on the child. Many, many years later, at the end of World War II, Dr. Maria Montessori in Italy was transitioning from being a physician to becoming an educator. And she had a new approach to teaching and learning that allowed children to work on tasks or projects at their own pace. Now, a little historical reference, I should point out, this all happened at the end of World War II, when Italy was in like ruins and people were rebuilding their lives. People were trying to rebuild a new normal. Not much different than how we are in like a hopefully post-pandemic world, looking at what did and didn't work in education and moving forward to create a more resilient educational system. And PCBL, we believe, is part of that pathway to recovery from such a pandemic. Not too long ago, at the end of the Vietnam War and the height of the civil rights movement, Fred Rogers created a television show to reach all children. Won't You Be My Neighbor, right? And he pointed out something rather unique, that teachers have many, many roles. They're instructors, advocates, mentors, nurses, social workers, authority figures. He pointed out all these roles we play in our neighborhood and how we can work together to build those relationships, and that the person who creates those relationships is the most powerful in a child's life. And we know that's the truth. Like, from educational research shows that the relationship between a learner and their educator, a responsible, safe adult, is the most highest efficacy in their success. So this is not something new. You've been doing it. And you've probably been doing it more in a preschool, early childhood learning environment than anywhere else. This is how we as an agency define PCBL, and I'm going to unpack this here for you in just a minute. But educators are engaging all students, right? That's equity, high expectations for shared learning goals, and empowering each learner to take ownership of their strengths, needs, and interests while tailoring flexible supports to maximize student growth and competence. So we are moving from a teacher-centered environment past the curriculum-centered environment and towards a truly personalized, what just happened there? Did you see that, Jessica? You spotlighted a video or something?
Yeah, it's just that you show up better on the recording.
Well, my hair's all messed up. I wish
It's great, Michael.
Sure. What about my eyebrows? So this is the definition, right? We're moving from a teacher-centered or curriculum-centered to more of a learner-centered environment. And we have created this framework to help define that, what it looks like, and help support this change, or shift, I should say. There are 5 components: the culture of learning, which is setting up an environment, a school, a classroom, a district that allows for PCBL to thrive and for it to be learner-centered. Learner agency. This can't happen unless our students have responsibility for their learning and are active members and take a role in expressing their voice and choice. We're moving away from standardized test scores and those types of assessments to a demonstrated competency and assessment framework or approach. And we're even kind of doing a little bit of a renovation of our assessment and accountability department here at USB as we make the shift to looking at portrait of a graduate rather than just test scores. Customized supports are put in place for every learner to have what they need. And then social emotional learning, which is something I'm sure you're all aware of, is making sure that children are well, happy, healthy, ready to learn. We have changed this a little bit from the previous version. It used to say purpose and vision, and it is now culture of learning. We've also redefined student agency. We call it learner agency. And that way we can include all learners in the learning community, not just the students, but also the parents, the administrators, the teachers, the educators, all of us. And equity. While this used to be its own individual component, it no longer sits off by itself because it's actually a key ingredient in every component. So when you're looking at this framework, which I have a link to right here in Nearpod, but I will also put it in the chat. As you look through this framework, you're going to notice equity lives, it's the heart of PCBL. It lives in every single component. So I'm going to share that for you right there. So I have that for you to look at when you have time, but I'm going to kind of unpack it for you right now and take you on a little picture walk, and then I'll turn it over to Melanie, just to show you what exactly PCBL looks like in Utah schools. So if you go into a classroom like down in Washington County, Washington Fields Intermediate, you might see something like this, the charger process. This is their culture of learning. They identify as a school, as a community, exactly what they're doing every week. They look at their purpose, vision, and commitments. They identify which standards and skills will be taught that week. The teachers together collaborate and share their clarity and what proficiency will look like for students. And then they teach. And then the students, this is amazing, the students will self-assess. They look at their own work, their own scores, and they determine what do they need to do to meet mastery. And then they have extra time and support if they need it. So a lot of times these assessments take place on Wednesday or Thursday, and then they have Friday for extra support. So a very clear culture of learning on what a personalized learner-centered environment looks like. Just up the street in Cedar City, you'll see a poster like this from the Launch Academy, which is a high school there that focuses on project-based learning. The words that they use in their culture are inspiration, ideation, and implementation. They'll work in groups to figure out what is a problem, they'll get an idea, and then they'll start building their project out. And they keep moving through this cycle over and over again. But they have a common language that they use in their culture of learning. The Juab School District, for example, took our profile of a graduate, the Utah one, and kind of revised it a little bit to meet their own unique community down there in Juab. And then they've created their own vision statement, which is flexible, personalized, blended learning pathways to success for all students. So they've adopted PCBL in their entire district vision. Learner agency, this is where students have voice and choice and take ownership. Check out this activity in a middle school classroom where the students come in, they know what they're working on. There's some direct instruction on planets and their properties. And then they're given a menu to choose from on how they can learn. They can go and watch a video, they can read text, they can have a hands-on activity, whatever they want. And then they have to practice their DOL, or I can't say that, see that very well, properties of the planets, but they have to apply what they learned and demonstrate their competency. And they have choice there as well as what their project looks like. I don't know if you've ever had the chance to meet John Arthur. He's our teacher of the year. He did a presentation recently called Megaphonic Bliss, where he talked about how his students at Meadowlark Elementary School get to create their own video podcasts and music videos about some of the things that concern them. And John was very clear to point out that, like, I'm not an immigrant. I don't know what it's like to migrate to the United States and experience the last 4 years, but my students do. And so I hold the megaphone for them. I provide them a format for them to share their voices. We sometimes see students working on projects alone. This is at a school in Davis. 2 students, it was a glassed-in room, so there was no adults in there, but they were supervised visually. I just want to point that out. But they're in here creating a script for a podcast they're going to make, and they have all the materials for recording. So they're given the opportunity to create their own projects. Demonstrated competency and assessment is a little tricky one here. This is where there's really a big shift happening as we move away from standardized tests and more towards allowing students to self-assess, to share clarity by giving them learning targets. What do I need to learn? Where am I at? What do I still need to do? And they even have like a rubric for their level of understanding. So the students play an active role in determining when they're competent. They might come in, look at their learning targets in each area for the week, and then they can choose their path as to what materials and supports they need as they move forward in the academic process. Here's an example of that. Picture these 2 students. Both of them got an 86% in biology. Look at the difference in their scores, though. Both did really well in classwork. One, great score in homework. The other, terrible. Ironically, the student who did all of their homework and turned it in on time didn't do as well on quizzes and tests as the student who never turned in their homework on time, right? And then we see a big difference in participation. What's happening here is both students got the exact same grade, but one is a good student and the other, if we look at quizzes and tests, is a good scientist. If we were to grade them instead based on those skills, right? Pathology, genetics, punctuality, curiosity, and collaboration, we would be able to see that this is where this child needs to work to improve, focusing on their science skills, and this child needs to work on functionality and collaboration, some of those portrait of a graduate skills. A different grading system allows the student to know where they're at, the parent and the teacher to know what they need. So this is what we mean by moving towards a different grading structure. This one relies more on feedback than on scores. Customized supports are put in place, whether that's a manipulative classroom where they can choose where they sit. Some students like to sit up high, some students need to sit near the front, near the back, whatever it is. But we allow them to select the appropriate support that they need in order to engage in that personalized pathway. So you can see here, students are working maybe with a teacher, or there's a paraeducator offering support, or they're working independently, depending on what they need that day. So it's customized for them on their pathway. Here's another example where students come in and they see which group they're going to be working on based on where their levels are and what their needs are. Again, rotation groups are sometimes set up where they can come in, they find out which group they're working with, and then they have time to go work. And then maybe they come back for some direct instruction, just like you would see in a traditional classroom. And finally, social emotional learning. You all know what SEL is and what it stands for, but we heard about empathy and love of learning and self-regulation. That's taught here. This is really cool. A kindergarten class starts with a little SEL check-in where they have to partner up and talk about, like, would you rather, and then they have to share and discuss. They get warmed up for learning. They're ready to go. They check in with each other. They know what they need. And the teacher has a class that then is ready to sit down and get to work. So that's what schools look like today that are implementing PCBL. What do you think schools will look like in the future? This is a question Melanie had, so I'm going to mute myself and let her take over.
Before I go on, I just want to take a second and process some of the things that Michael just said. This is pretty amazing that this is what's happening in schools. That there is a plan to help us create an environment where all students can, free of stress and fear, be able to learn in the way that is best for them. So, and I think Michael does a really good job of explaining what this looks like. I just kind of want to take a minute, let it land, see where you are with this. What are your thoughts? You can tell your thoughts by just thinking them silently, or you can go off mute and talk. We have few enough people that it won't be chaotic if you just want to take turns talking, or you can put some thoughts in the chat. I'd like to take about 30 seconds to kind of process what Michael just talked about. What do you guys think? So I would like you to, in the chat, tell not only what you think schools will look like, but what you hope schools would look like. What do you hope schools will look like in the future?
Mallory has her hand up. I'm gonna unmute you, Mallory.
Thank you.
Actually, I think you can unmute yourself, Mallory. Go ahead.
Am I there? Can you hear me?
Yes.
No? Okay, sorry about that. Mallory Smith from St. George, Utah. I think that schools in the future are going to be a lot of the hands-on learning, a lot of individualized education plans will be the norm, and it won't be through a special education program. It will be the parent enrolling their child in the form that best suits them. And I think it'll help a lot out with the budgetary of things like maintaining schools and grounds and curriculum materials, because each one will be individualized. So one child may be learning in their home where another child will be in an established school. I'm sure funding and all of that will come up differently, but it will be, you know, one kid will be a highly social emotional learner. One kid will be a, you know, textual, graphic learner with maybe no sound or sensory blocking of any sort. Some of them will be in large groups to do like collaborations and things. My concern with that is, of course, is the social aspect. Some kids will need that encouragement of social aspect. But I think that the dynamic of how we grow together is best done in a group. That's all. I don't know if that was helpful at all.
Oh, I love that, Mallory. Thank you. I think you bring up a good point, and that is we want to give people the option to be social or not social, but what if they need the social? Just being sensitive to that, and it's not an either or, and it's just something to always attend to. I love that. I want to call out something that Terry said. Terry said, good models for those students who have delays of any kind. I'm wondering if some students are labeled as having delays when they're just different. I don't know, that's just something I want to throw out there. Maybe somebody is just really excelling in something that we're not measuring at schools. And wouldn't it be nice to not have the word delay be such a big part of our vocabulary? And I have no idea, and you can feel free to jump in and talk, Terry. I have no idea what you meant by delay. Maybe you're talking about something that's a lot more obvious and less nuanced than I am, and I might be putting words in your mouth. But I was just thinking a lot about that. Involving.
I like that you took the word delay out. Yes, just any students that might feel uncomfortable working in a group or need directions in a different way other than reading, or may need more time to process. You're right, just that they learn in a different way.
Wow. Interesting. Michael was considered delayed when he was in first and second grade when his parents got divorced, but then when he was in high school, he was all honors and advanced courses. Huh. So interesting.
Yeah, and I'm always really certain every time I see my parents to remind them that I would be a much more successful person had they not gotten divorced. They like that when I do that. Not really.
Bailey, what Bailey said, students guiding their own learning, increased engagement, happier students. Do you want to speak to that, Bailey?
Yeah, I mean, the thought I had is if students are having a little bit of options or choices on how to guide their learning, they're going to be way more interested in that than teachers saying you need to do X, Y, and Z. And I just had the other thought too, if students are happier, this is going to seep even into more areas. Like if students are happier, teachers are going to be happier, and hopefully teachers would stick around as well. But that was just my thought, is just happier students overall when they are in charge of their learning and have that option, then they're going to be more interested and more engaged that way.
Thank you. I like that observation. Kathy said students and parents having choices about how, when, and to some extent what they learn. What do you think, Kathy?
That's what I think.
That's
I believe they will have more choices.
That is one thing that the quarantine pandemic has taught us.
Even the charter schools have given parents and students a lot of choices that they didn't have in the past.
So true. Thank you. I see Mallory's hand is up.
I think it's up from her previous comment.
Any more thoughts before we go to the next topic? Thank you so much for sharing out. Let's skip this video. So, because I want to do the next, I want to make sure we have enough time for the next activity. I am so proud of these core standards. They explicitly tell what these skills look like in 4-year-olds, in 3-year-olds. For example, they show what self-regulation looks like for a 4-year-old, what it looks like for a 3-year-old, what initiative looks like, what persistence looks like. So what I'd like you to do is, earlier I asked you to open the core standards and have that on another window on your computer or phone or whatever device you're using. Would you go to this link? And then there, take a look around. We're going to especially look at lifelong learning. Take a look at this area, and I have an activity that will give you a reason to engage in the core standards. So Jessica told me what pages lifelong learning was on.
Page 56.
So start at page 56, and there is a Nearpod activity where you can click and match. And Michael's going to give us a demo on how this Nearpod activity works.
Yeah, when you see the matching squares pop up, it might be hard to read the first row of squares. So just click the blue instruction tab to roll that out of the way. And then you'll pick one of the words and then find the example for it. And then if you click on it and get it right, it'll be green. And if you get it wrong, it'll be pink. And you can try again if you need to. Just a little fun activity for you in your pod.
Yeah. So let's take about 3 minutes and familiarize yourself with the preschool core standards.
We have a lot of experts in this group. Look how many people got 4 out of 4.
I'm going to say that they're experts in 2 things. They're really good at clicking, and they're also really good at knowing the standards. As we are finishing up, I have a question for you to either think about or talk about or chat about, and that is what comes up for you with respect to these standards that you're looking at. Any ideas, anything any idea that's just popped into your head? Anything you'd like to share? Let's go on to the next question. So we have
This one, or should I jump back one?
No, let's go to this one.
Okay.
You want to talk about the poll, Michael?
Okay, sure. So the last question we have for you before we wrap up is your entry point. I hope I conveyed the message that this PCBL course direction that we're taking with our educational community is not really something new, but it's built on what we know has worked. And so I want to ask you, what is something you're already doing when you looked through that tour of Utah schools and saw the different framework of PCBL? Where is it already happening for you? Like, what is your entry point? So the poll question I have is, what area do you feel comfortable and are you already doing in your learning community? Is it learner agency, providing opportunities for learners to take responsibility for their learning? Do you have customized supports in place? Are you creating conditions for all students to learn? Are you solid with demonstrated competency and assessment, project-based learning with focus on skills and knowledge and demonstrating that competency? I definitely feel that's what I see from my child at Kinderbeats. And then social emotional learning, like what is your strong point? Where do you feel most comfortable sort of getting on the on-ramp to PCBL? So go ahead and enter that in if you would. I'll switch over to teacher view so we can look at the poll. And then as the answers come in, oh, we already got one for B. Or E, I guess. Nope, they're all over. No answer is what's leading. I'm sorry. Learning. I'll let Melanie go ahead and wrap us up and put a bow on it, right?
Thank you very much for coming. We are very interested at USBE to see how the initiatives and the changes that we're envisioning and the system changes that we're advocating for, and we're really interested to see how they are working in the actual classrooms with actual children. And so we invite you to contact us anytime with thoughts or ideas. And I'm going to put my email address in the chat. This is my first pandemic. This is my first time to try to rebuild schools. This is my first time to do many things. So I would love all of the feedback I could possibly get. And that's the bow. Jessica, do you want to tie a bow too?
You guys did a great job. Thank you guys so much. And yeah, I just wanted to make sure that you guys had the opportunity to be introduced to PCBL if you haven't heard of it. We're starting to see some great changes across the state, and it begins in preschool. So thanks for coming today.